Hello quilters, etc. My name is Sean Connor. I'm a partner here at Amelia Scott Designs. Today I'll be showing you how to stitch out two of the bunting flags from our latest pattern, America Font and Flags. The pattern comes with a full 36 character font and 37 applique flag designs, one for each letter of the alphabet and one art flag to punctuate the text. That's enough characters to stitch out the entire unabridged screenplay of the 1986 film Aliens for Mother's Day. Not that you would. That'd be crazy. For today's demonstration, we're going to stitch out the art flag and the letter U. We're going to start with the art flag. You can see here that I've hooped 2 layers of water-soluble stabilizer in a 9.5 square inch hoop. We're also going to be using a 7-inch square each of backing fabric and batting or fleece, several strips of red and white fabric, and embroidery or micropore tape. The exact sizes for the stripes are listed in the PDF instructions for the pattern. I've picked batiks, so I won't have to worry about matching the right size. That's totally optional, but it makes my life a little easier. This is ready, so I'm going to take this over to the machine and load the flag art design. So the first thing we're going to do is stitch down a placement line where we're going to lay our batting. I have a neutral thread loaded in the top and bobbin. I'm just going to lower my foot and press go. Now that the placement line is down, I'm going to lay some batting over top, making sure that all the edges are covered. Going to pull that up just a little bit and make sure it lays flat. You shouldn't need to tape this batting down, so that should be good. I'll lower the foot and press start to go. When that's done, you're going to leave the project in the hoop, but take it out of your machine and trim away the excess fabric. As always with applique, it's really important to get as close as you can to the stitch without actually going over. We don't want much hanging off the edges at all. So once that's done, we're going to return the hoop to the machine as I've done here, and we're going to stitch out a placement line for the center stripe. Once that's done, we'll take the thinner of our red strips. You'll see in the instructions that one set of these is thinner than the others. That'll just go right over there. We're going to pop this out of the machine to make sure everything is lined up. Okay, and then we're going to place a white strip over top of that. The next seam we're going to stitch is going to secure both of these onto the batting, which will let us fold it over and put the first white stripe in place. If you're not using a batik, make sure your right sides are together because that's going to get folded over, like so. The seam is going to start in the middle there, so hopefully you shouldn't need to tape it down. I'm going to press start. All right, once that seam is down, we're going to take the hoop out of the machine. Again, keep the project in the hoop, and we're just going to finger press that seam down. We've got this little tool here that can help us with that. Get a nice firm crease. Love this thing. And that's our second stripe down. Next, we're going to go for one of our thicker reds and lay this down, right sides together, and line it up with the right hand edge of the white stripe. That looks good. The next seam we're going to do is going to tack that one down. Lower your foot and press start when you're ready. Same as before, we're going to fold that over and crease it down. It's okay that seam doesn't go all the way to the bottom. Going to handle that a little later. Next, we're going to tack down another one of our white strips. Going to lay this over the center strip, right sides together, left edges aligned. Lower your foot and start the machine when you're ready. We're just repeating the process until we've got all our stripes down. Be sure to leave the project in the hoop. And now we're going in for our last red. This is one of the thicker ones. Right sides together, left edges aligned. That looks good. And start the machine to tack that down. This edge can go a little crazy, so be careful of that one. We want that laying flat. That's the last of our stripes down. Next, we're going to move on to the blue backing fabric. I'm going to change my top and bobbin thread to a blue before we move on. All right, I've got my blue thread loaded. I've got blue backing fabric down over top of the stripes. Right sides are together. I needed to double check because I am not using a batik for this one. So I'm going to lower my foot and start the machine to tack that down. As before, I'm going to fold that over, give that a good finger press. All right, here's where we want to be careful. Because our strips dangle off the edge of our flag, we want to tape those down before we tack them in place. This left one especially can catch on the presser foot and get mangled. Great song, but we don't want it happening to our flag. I'm also being very careful to avoid the edge of our design here, because we don't want the presser foot going over that either. Now I'm going to start the machine to tack that in place. Alright, that step's done. You can see that our strips crinkled up a little. I think that's going to be okay on our final product, but maybe give yourself a little more room than I did. Next, we're going to leave the project in the hoop, but take it out of the machine and trim away the excess fabric. Alright, so I've trimmed out the excess fabric very close to the seam without going over. The next step is to stitch out the stars and buttonholes on this blue field here. So I put white thread in the top and bobbin, and I'm going to lower my foot and press start. Alright, once our stars are stitched out, we're going to take the hoop out of the machine and flip it over, because the next step is to put our backing fabric on. We're leaving the machine in the hoop. This is a batik. We want the right side up. And I'm just going to make sure that's covering the entire design. And for this one, we definitely want to tape down the edges with our micropore tape. Get that good and taut. Alright, so I've got the backing fabric taped to the back of the project. I've got blue thread in the top and bobbin. So now I'm going to lower my foot and tack down the backing fabric. Once that's done, we're going to remove our hoop from the machine and trim away the excess. Alright, so I've trimmed away the excess fabric. Again, cutting as close to the stitch as possible without going over, and then return the project to the machine. The last step at our machine here is to stitch a satin edge all around the design. So keeping our blue thread loaded in the top and bobbin, I'm going to lower the machine and press start. With the satin edge down, our stitching is done. The next step is to cut out these buttonholes on the sides here. If you have a push blade like this one, that'll work just fine. If you have an X-Acto knife taped to a broom handle for home defense like I do, that'll also work too. You just want to get in these little holes very carefully. It might take 2 passes to get through all the backing fabric. You don't need to go all the way to the stitches. You just want to get far enough that it gets all the way through, and you can string a ribbon through there. All right, so next we have to get this out of the hoop. So I've got a paintbrush and some water, and I'm just going to dab around the edges like that. If you paint like I do, you know that water flows very quickly off of your bristles, so I'm going to keep refilling my brush more than I'm used to, and just go all the way around the edge there. Let's see, that's already gone. All right, and that is just about done. Now, optionally, you can use some of this fray check to dab on the back where you cut the holes, just to keep everything from fraying. But otherwise, our first bunting flag is done. All right, that looks great. Our first flag is done. Now, I've got the flag U design loaded up on the machine. Note we are wanting to use the flag U design and not the letter U. I've got 2 layers of water-soluble stabilizer in our 9.5-inch hoop. And you'll need 2 7-inch squares of backing fabric and 1 7-inch square of batting or fleece. That's ready, so I'm going to take this over to the machine. Alright, so I've got the U flag design loaded up in the machine. I have blue thread in the top and bobbin. The first thing this is going to do is stitch out a placement line for our backing fabric. So I'm going to lower my foot and press start. The next step is to take our batting and place it over that line. That's looking good. Now I'll lower the foot and tack that down. Once that's done, we're going to take the project out of the machine, leave it in the hoop, but trim away the excess batting. As always, I've trimmed really close to the stitch without going over. Now, before we start the next step, we want to lay our backing fabric over the batting, and we definitely want to take the edges here. Get that nice and flat. And once that's secure, we're going to lower our presser foot and start the machine to tack that down. Once that's done, we're going to remove the hoop from the machine, keep the project in the hoop as always, and just trim around the edge to get rid of the excess backing fabric. So the next thing it's going to stitch out is the quilting and the blue parts on the letter U, as well as the buttonholes. I'm keeping blue thread in the top and bobbin. I'm going to lower my press foot and start the machine to stitch that out. Alright, with the blue parts done, the next step is to stitch out the stars and the white stripes of the letter U. I've got white thread in my top and bobbin, and so I'm just going to lower my presser foot and press start. With the white parts done, we're going to move on to the reds and finish off the stripes. As always, we recommend matching your top and bottom thread, so I've got red in both. I'm just going to lower the presser foot and press start. Alright, with the red done, our flag is almost finished. The next step is going to be to stitch a satin stitch all around the letter U. I've loaded blue thread in my top and bobbin, so I'm going to lower the presser foot and press start. Alright, once the satin edge is done around our letter, the last step is to tack down the backing fabric on the reverse side of the flag. I'm going to take the hoop out of the machine. As always, leave the project in the hoop. I'm just going to lay the backing fabric over that. And of course, we're going to tape this down with our micropore tape. Careful to avoid the edge of the design. I mentioned this before, but you do not want your needle running through this stuff. Alright, once that's taped down, we just return the hoop to the machine, lower our presser foot, and tack it down. Once that's tacked down, we can remove the hoop from the machine and trim away the excess fabric. Alright, so we're on the very last step now. I've trimmed away the excess fabric. I had some threads dangling out from behind the backing fabric, so I just took a second and clipped those off too, so that the final design is nice and neat when we're ready to take it out of the hoop. So I'm just going to return this to machine. I've still got blue thread in the top and bobbin, and we are ready to lower our presser foot and stitch out that final satin stitch. With the satin stitch finished, our work in the machine is done. We are just about ready to finish this up and take this out of the hoop. First thing I'm going to do is take my blade and cut some holes in the buttonholes here. We'll want to go through once or twice just to cut all the way through that fabric, being careful to not sever the stitches going around the holes. Alright, those look good. They're going all the way through. Optionally, you can use some frayed check like this to seal those on the back. Make sure they don't come undone. I'm sticking a needle in the bottle because glue has a tendency to dry up. And I'm just going to dab a little bit around those holes we just cut. And while that's drying, we can take our paintbrush and water and just dab around the edge of the design to dissolve that water-soluble stabilizer. And with those two flags done, our banner is off to a really great start. If you've made it this far in the video, I'd like to thank you for sticking around. Leave us a like and a comment, and maybe someday we'll be sponsored by a terrible mobile game or Sketchy Therapy Network. Finally, subscribe and ring the bell icon to see if Mom lets me keep any of these jokes in the final video. Bye now.